Welcome to fatherhood. So, you're a dad now. Or maybe you're about to be. Or maybe you're just thinking about it, staring into the distance while holding a cold coffee and asking yourself, am I even ready for this? Spoiler alert, you're not. No one is. Becoming a dad isn't like installing an app or buying a new gadget. It doesn't come with a manual, and even if it did, you wouldn't read it. Don't lie. We both know you'd shove it in a drawer next to the IKEA instructions you never used. This is not about perfection. This is about showing up. Because kids don't care how many books you've read or how many YouTube videos you've watched. They care if you're there. And being there, that's where it all starts. But let's not sugarcoat it. Being a dad is messy, literally and figuratively. You'll be peed on, pooped on, sneezed on, sometimes all before breakfast. There will be moments you feel like a superhero, and moments you feel like the guy who can't find his keys while holding them in his hand. That's normal. Welcome to the club. Now let's get one thing straight. This isn't one of those motivational lectures with orchestral music in the background telling you to be the best version of yourself. This is real. This is for the dads who are trying, who don't always get it right, who sometimes lose their temper, forget the diaper bag, or microwave the bottle for too long. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to care enough to want to do better. This book, or video, depending on where you're consuming this, is a fast-track course in being a better dad. It's not a deep psychological dive. It's a flashlight in the dark. Simple, clear, honest stuff that actually works. And no, it's not just spend time with your kids and listen to your partner, though, spoiler, those are in there too. We're talking mindset, presence, habits, and how to be the kind of man your kid looks up to, not just because you're tall, but because you show up when it matters. We'll break it down into short lessons. We'll laugh, maybe cringe, maybe even feel something. But at the end of it all, if you come out a little more patient, a little more self-aware, and a little more connected to the people that matter, we've done our job. So, buckle up. It's going to be honest. It's going to be useful. It's going to take less time than an oil change. Let's begin. Lesson 1. Your presence is power. Let's be honest. When most people think about being a great dad, they imagine some heroic figure, grilling steaks with one hand, fixing a leaky sink with the other, and giving wise life advice like Gandalf with a toolbox. But real fatherhood isn't about being a hero in a cape. It's about being there, consistently, quietly, relentlessly. Presence isn't flashy. You don't get awards for folding laundry or sitting through a 3-hour school play where your kid says one line and then becomes a tree. No one claps when you cancel plans with your buddies because your daughter has a fever and just wants you to sit next to her and watch Frozen for the 8th time. But you know what? That's where the real magic is. That's where trust is built. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know all the answers. But when your kid looks around the room during their school recital or basketball game and sees you, that moment matters. Your presence says one thing louder than any speech. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Let's talk science for a second. Studies show that children with actively present fathers are more confident, perform better academically, and are less likely to get involved in risky behavior. Not because their dads were perfect, but because they were there. So, what does presence look like in the real world? It's not complicated. It's putting your phone down during dinner. It's asking, "How was your day?" and actually listening. It's reading a bedtime story, even when you're exhausted. It's showing up to parent-teacher conferences, even if you're the only dad in the room. It's letting them help you fix the car, even if they slow you down and put a wrench in the radiator. Okay, maybe gently redirect that one. You see, Kids spell love with 4 letters. T-I-M-E. And the truth is, most of us weren't taught how to be emotionally present. We were told to man up, tough it out, and provide. And yes, providing is important, but presence is provision. When you give your time, your attention, your focus, you're giving the one thing your child can't get from anyone else. You. Now, here's the twist. Presence doesn't just help your kid, it changes you. It teaches patience, it makes you slow down, it forces you to confront your own habits, your own wounds, your own distractions. Presence pulls you into the now, and the now is where life actually happens. Sure, your kid might not remember every moment. They won't remember which brand of cereal you bought or what shirt you were wearing on that Tuesday in April. But they'll remember how they felt around you. Safe, seen, supported. And someday, they'll tell someone, "My dad, he was always there, no matter what." And that, my friend, is a legacy worth leaving. So, quick tip to practice this today. Set a 20-minute no-phone timer when you're with your kid. No notifications, no Instagram, just undivided attention. See what changes. Lesson 2. Your words build worlds. Kids believe what you say, even when you're joking, even when you're tired, even when you think they're not listening. Your voice becomes their voice. Not just the things you say out loud, but the tone, the look, the sigh when they mess up, the silence when they hoped for encouragement and got nothing. Words are powerful. You know this. One line from your dad, positive or negative, probably still lives rent-free in your head. Something like, "I'm proud of you," or "What's wrong with you?" One builds a bridge, the other digs a ditch. That's how it works. Words don't just float in the air. They land, and they grow. That's why being a dad means being a kind of gardener. Every word is a seed. Some grow into confidence, some grow into shame. The good news is, you don't have to say perfect things, just true ones, honest ones. And when you mess up, because you will, own it. There's real power in, "Hey, I was too hard on you earlier. That wasn't fair. I'm sorry." You just taught your kid how to take responsibility, not by lecturing, but by living it. Now let's talk about the kinds of words that build worlds. 1. Words of belief. You've got this. I believe in you. Even if you fail, I'm proud of you for trying. You don't realize how much that matters until you see your kids stand taller just because you looked them in the eye and believed in them. Number 2, words of presence. Tell me more. I'm listening. I'm here for you. Sometimes you don't need advice. You need a witness. Your kid is no different. Number 3, words of identity. You're kind. You're brave. You're honest. Say it enough and they'll start to believe it. Not in an inflated ego way, but in a deep-rooted, I know who I am kind of way. And let's not forget humor. Dad jokes aren't just for laughs. They're connection. Your goofy voice, your made-up songs, your bad impressions of cartoon characters, that's the soundtrack to their childhood. Don't underestimate how powerful it is to be the reason your kid laughs. But also watch your sarcasm. Adults understand the difference between a joke and a jab. Kids don't. They're still learning context. So what feels like harmless teasing can land as, I'm not good enough. Here's the rule of thumb. If you're not sure how it landed, clarify. You know I'm just playing, right? I love you no matter what. Because what's obvious to you may not be obvious to a 7-year-old. or a 17-year-old for that matter. Now, this doesn't mean you can't correct them. Being a dad also means saying, "That's not okay. We don't do that in this family. Here's how we make it right." Discipline is love, but discipline without connection becomes fear. And fear doesn't build strong adults. It builds people pleasers and rebels. Connection comes first. Correction comes next, not the other way around. You don't need a psychology degree or perfect timing. You just need to mean what you say and say what you mean with kindness and clarity. And one more thing. Tell them you love them. Out loud, often. Don't assume they know. Don't wait for the right moment. Say it at breakfast, in the car, before bed. Say it when they get an A. Say it when they fail the test. Say it when they're 5. Say it when they're 35. Because when the world tries to tell them they're not enough, your voice is the one they'll remember. Quick tip to practice this today. Pick one specific thing your kid did today, even something small, and praise it directly. "I saw how patient you were with your little brother today. That showed real maturity."
Lesson 3. Show up for the tough stuff. Here's a truth nobody tells you loud enough. Anyone can be a dad when it's easy. When your kid is laughing, when the sun is shining, when everyone's behaving and dinner's hot and you got a full night's sleep. But that's not where fatherhood earns its stripes. You become a real dad in the middle of the mess. In the tantrums, the teenage silence, the hospital waiting rooms, the lost games, the broken rules, the broken hearts. That's when they need you most, and that's when it's hardest to stay. Because let's be honest, when your kid is pushing you away, acting out, testing limits, the last thing you want to do is lean in. You want to back off, go quiet, shut the door. But that's the moment they're silently begging, "Are you going to leave me too?" Kids don't always say what they need. They act it out instead. A meltdown isn't always about the toy. The attitude isn't always about the homework. Sometimes it's just their way of saying, "My world feels too big right now. Will you still love me when I'm not cute and easy?" And your job, your sacred, messy, exhausting job, is to show up anyway. Not with perfect solutions, not with a TED Talk speech, but with presence. Sometimes the best thing you can say is, "I see you. I know this is hard. I'm not going anywhere." It doesn't mean you let things slide, but it means you stand with them through it. When they're in pain, you don't need to fix it. You need to hold the space. Let them cry. Let them rage. Let them feel it all, knowing they're not alone in it. And yes, sometimes you'll get it wrong. You'll yell when you should have paused. You'll walk away when you should have stayed. You'll say something that echoes too loudly in their mind. That's okay if you own it. "I lost my temper. That wasn't fair. I'm sorry." That sentence, it's not weakness, it's power. You're showing them what accountability looks like. You're teaching them it's safe to make mistakes and to repair them. Because that's what real strength is. Not perfection, but consistency. Being the guy who shows up, again and again, especially when it's hard. Want to know when your kid will remember you most? Not the birthday you threw at the trampoline park, not the Christmas with the new Xbox, but that night when they were heartbroken and you sat on the edge of their bed and you just stayed. That moment, the quiet presence, becomes a forever memory, a piece of their emotional foundation. And here's a secret. Even if they don't thank you now, even if they roll their eyes, even if they say, "Leave me alone," they're still listening, still watching, still measuring. Is love here even when I'm a mess? So show them the answer is yes. Be there when they lose, when they lie, when they fail, when they're too proud to ask for help. That's the stuff they'll carry forever. Because when they grow up and face the world, with bills and breakups and grief and doubt, they'll look back on how you showed up in their storms, and they'll say, "If Dad stayed through that, maybe I can stay through this." This doesn't mean you sacrifice everything or never rest. It means you anchor them. You let your love be predictable, not conditional, not performance-based. You say, "I love you when you're winning. I love you when you're not." That doesn't spoil a child. That roots them. It gives them the courage to face hard things because you modeled how.
Lesson 4. Be the example, not the exception. Here's the truth no kid will ever say out loud, but every kid feels. I learn more from watching you than from listening to you. You can talk all day about hard work, kindness, honesty, self-control, but if you slam doors when you're angry, scroll endlessly at dinner, or lie to get out of plans, that's the lesson. Not your words, your actions. Your kids are watching, not sometimes, but always. They're watching when you drive, when you talk to the waiter, when you come home from work exhausted, when you react to stress, when you treat their mother. And here's the kicker. They don't copy what you say. They copy what you do. You want them to be respectful? Show them how to apologize first. Want them to be brave? Let them see you try things that scare you. Want them to talk about their feelings? Talk about yours, even when it's uncomfortable. You can't ask your kid to be patient if you lose your mind in traffic. You can't expect honesty if you lie to your boss on speakerphone. You can't expect them to be resilient if every setback makes you bitter. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect, far from it, but it means you have to be real, consistent, accountable. Because here's the trap most adults fall into. Do as I say, not as I do. It never works. It breeds resentment. It teaches hypocrisy. And worst of all, it teaches kids that pretending is more important than integrity. So flip the script. Be the example of someone who owns their mistakes, who tries again, who doesn't quit on bad days, who shows up even when it's easier not to. And let them see it. Let them see you say, "I'm sorry" to your partner. Let them see you turn off the phone and listen. Let them see you clean up your mess, even when you could blame someone else. You want to raise amazing kids? Be the kind of adult you'd want them to become. Because whether you realize it or not, you are their blueprint. When they become adults and life squeezes them, your voice will echo in their head. The way you handled money, anger, joy, grief, it will shape how they handle theirs. So if you want to build strong kids, build yourself first. Get honest about your weaknesses, your triggers, your habits. Do the work you wish your own parents had done. No, it's not fair. You didn't get the handbook. You didn't have the best example growing up.
You're figuring it out on the fly. But that's what makes it powerful. You can be the one who breaks the cycle. You can be the father who stops the chain of silence, who replaces anger with connection, fear with presence, distance with trust. And maybe your kids won't thank you right away. They might not even realize what you're doing for years. But one day, when they're grown, facing life with all its chaos, they'll remember, Dad never gave up. He didn't just tell me how to live, he showed me. And that will matter more than any lecture, any punishment, any chore chart or bedtime rule. Because that's what legacy really is. Not what you say, but what you live. Quick tip for this week. Pick one behavior you want to see in your kid and model it. Not once, but every day for the next 7 days. Watch what happens.
Lesson 5. Stop trying to be cool. Be present instead. Let's get something straight. You're not competing with TikTok. You're not going to out-Fortnite. And no, your dad jokes aren't going to win them over every time. Even if you think they're hilarious, and sometimes they are, but don't push it. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Being cool is a losing game. Especially when you're over 30, wear socks with sandals, and still say lit unironically. But guess what? Your kids don't need you to be cool. They don't need you to be their best friend or a walking meme. They need you to show up. They need you to listen. They need you to ask, how was school? And actually mean it. Let's talk presence. Not the I'm in the same room but scrolling Instagram kind of presence. I'm talking about real presence. Like putting down your phone when they walk in. Looking them in the eye when they tell you about their Minecraft fortress, even if it makes 0 sense. Showing up to the school play where they're tree number 4 and clapping like they're Meryl Streep. Because what they'll remember isn't what shoes you wore, or if you knew the latest meme. They'll remember that you were there. The dad myth of cool. There's this myth floating around, maybe it's from movies or sitcoms, that the cool dad is the one who's always relaxed, always cracking jokes, high-fiving everybody like he's in a frat house. But let's be honest, that guy, he's exhausting. The cool dad burns out. The present dad builds trust. When your kid hits a wall, messes up, gets scared, they won't run to the dad who's always trying to be funny. They'll run to the dad who's been consistent, the one who listens, the one who takes them seriously. But I work a lot. Sure, we all do. Jobs, responsibilities, life, it's a lot. But being present isn't always about time. It's about attention. Even 10 minutes of undivided, distraction-free attention a day is more powerful than 3 hours of being half there. Here's a quick test. When was the last time you asked your kid a question and actually waited for the whole answer? Try it tonight. The real flex? Reliability. You don't have to be flashy. You don't have to be funny. Just be the guy who's always there. That's what sticks. The guy who helps with homework, even if he's Googling 6th grade math under the table. The guy who doesn't forget the recital, even if he's coming straight from work. The guy who always shows up, rain or shine, because he said he would. That's your superpower. Your mission, should you choose to accept it. Today, don't try to be cool. Try to be aware. Turn off the notifications. Sit down without the remote in hand. Ask a question that isn't about chores or grades. Let them lead the conversation. You might just be surprised by what you hear. Bottom line, being cool fades. Being present leaves a legacy. Choose wisely.
Lesson 6. Discipline isn't a dirty word. It's a dad's best tool. Let's be honest, discipline gets a bad rap these days. Say the word discipline, and people immediately think of shouting, punishment, grounding someone for a month because they forgot to load the dishwasher. But discipline, real discipline, isn't about control. It's about consistency. And let me tell you, kids don't need a drill sergeant. They need a lighthouse, a clear, steady signal, one that says, here's where we are, here's where we're going, here's what matters. Let's kill a myth. Discipline does not equal yelling. You don't have to raise your voice to raise a good human. You just have to mean what you say. If bedtime is 9, then bedtime is 9, not 9:30 if they whine long enough. If they throw a tantrum in the grocery store, you don't bribe them with candy. You hold the line. Because the second you flinch, they learn. They learn that rules are flexible, that boundaries bend if you yell loud enough. And before you know it, you're negotiating bedtime like a hostage situation. Okay, fine, just 10 more minutes and one more cookie, but that's it. Discipline is love in action. It's easy to say, I love you. It's harder to show love by setting boundaries, enforcing them, and explaining why they exist. Discipline says, I care enough to correct you. I respect you enough to hold you accountable. I believe you're capable of better. That's love, not always the cuddly kind, but the real kind. Spoiler alert, you're going to be the bad guy sometimes, and that's okay. They might roll their eyes, slam the door, call you so unfair, but one day, years from now, they'll be the one telling their kids, my dad didn't let me get away with that either. You're not raising a roommate. You're raising a future adult, one who will have to deal with deadlines, expectations, and the word no without throwing a tantrum. That starts with you. Consistency beats intensity. You don't have to lay down the law like Judge Dredd. You just need to be consistent. A few tips from the Dad Rule book. Be clear. Don't say be good. Say what that means. Be calm. Freaking out teaches them to freak out too. Be fair. Don't invent rules mid-game. Set expectations early. Remember, they're watching, always. How you handle your own stress is a model. So if you lose your cool every time the Wi-Fi drops, don't be surprised when they do the same over spilled juice. What about mistakes? Yours and theirs. You're not perfect. Neither are they. And when you screw up, own it. Hey, I shouldn't have yelled. I was frustrated, but that's on me. That moment, it teaches accountability more than 1,000 lectures. Same with them. If they mess up, don't just punish, teach. What happened? What could you have done differently? How can you make it right? Why this matters so much? Because the world won't hand them structure. That's your job, and later it'll become theirs. The kid who learns discipline at home doesn't get blindsided when the real world doesn't hand out trophies for showing up. They know how to handle failure, how to own responsibility, how to do what's right, even when it's hard. That's what discipline creates. Bottom line, being a fun dad is great. Being a fair dad is better. But being a disciplined dad, that's what builds leaders. So don't be afraid of the bad guy label. Be the dad who stands firm. Because one day, your kid will say, I'm glad my dad didn't let me slide.
Lesson 7. Your presence is the greatest gift you'll ever give. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need all the answers. You don't need a PhD in child psychology, a six-figure salary, or Pinterest-worthy lunches and biodegradable containers. But you do need to show up. Because here's the truth no one says enough. A dad who is there, truly there, beats a perfect dad who's never around. Let's talk about what kids actually remember. Spoiler, it's not the stuff. It's not the expensive gifts, the trendy sneakers, or the elaborate birthday parties with rented ponies and a balloon artist named Steve. It's the moments. That time you helped them build a pillow fort that collapsed halfway through. The way you high-fived them for their first basket, even though it wasn't technically their basket. Sitting on the floor eating cereal at midnight after a tough day. Presence isn't flashy. It's foundational. The trap? Being busy but absent. We've all been there. You're home, but not really. You're scrolling or answering emails or just finishing this one thing. Meanwhile, your kid is holding up a drawing, telling a story, waiting for you to notice, and you miss it. You don't mean to, but it happens. And then it happens again and again until one day they stop holding up the drawing. Not because they're hangry, because they've learned you're not really here. Presence isn't about time. It's about attention. You can spend 3 hours with your kid and still be a ghost. Or you can give them 15 minutes of undivided, eye-level, heart-open attention and change their whole day. Put the phone down. Look them in the eye. Listen like their words matter, because they do. That's how kids feel loved. Don't outsource the magic moments. It's tempting to hand off the bedtime stories, the drop-offs, the talks about life to someone else. But here's a secret. Those moments aren't filler. They're the good stuff. Those late-night conversations, the awkward chats about friendships, the just one more book nights. That's where connection lives. That's where your voice becomes their compass. You don't have to be a hero. Just be human. You don't need to pretend you're invincible. You don't need to act like you always know what you're doing. In fact, when you're honest about your mistakes, when you admit you're tired or scared or don't know, you teach them something powerful. That strength isn't about never falling. It's about always getting back up and staying connected along the way. And one day, they'll be adults, with jobs, with stress, maybe with kids of their own. And when life gets hard, when they're scared or uncertain, guess what they'll remember? The way you showed up, the way you listened, the way your presence made the world feel safer. Pen. Bottom line, presence doesn't require perfection. It requires intention. So be the dad who stops what he's doing. Be the dad who listens to the same story for the 10th time. Be the dad who is there, not just in the room, but in the moment. That's how you win. That's how they thrive. That's how you become the dad they'll always remember.